The stars were silent. Endless, cold, and far away. Inside a broken escape pod, a young alien soldier named Kale floated through the black sea of space. His eyes were half closed, his breath weak. He had been drifting for days, maybe longer. He no longer knew how much time had passed. Kale's body ached. His chest armor was cracked. One of his arms was wrapped in a blood-stained bandage he had tied himself. The small control panel in front of him blinked with red warnings. Oxygen low. Power low. Food empty. He had already eaten the last piece of ration 3 days ago. His lips were dry, and his stomach burned with hunger. He looked out the small round window. There was nothing. Only the dark. Only the stars that felt like frozen eyes, watching him suffer. Kale closed his eyes for a moment, trying to remember how he ended up here. It had started with a battle. His ship, the Sharakel, had been ambushed by the Zereth Dominion, a cruel empire that spread fear across the galaxy. Their warships had attacked with no mercy. His people, the Vyuri, had fought bravely, but they were outmatched. Fire filled the halls, explosions tore the metal apart. One by one, his fellow soldiers screamed, then went silent. Kale had barely made it into an escape pod. He thought others would follow. But when he looked back, no one came. The pod launched alone. He saw the burning wreck of his ship drift away, broken into pieces. His people, his commanders, his friends, they had retreated and left him behind. He had been abandoned. At first, he waited. He thought another ship from his people would come. He told himself they would rescue him. But hours turned into days, and the emptiness gave him his answer. They were not coming back. Kale's heart grew heavy. He had been left for dead. Not even worth saving. Now, floating alone, he whispered weakly to himself. Is this the end? His voice was small, broken, and disappeared in the stale air of the pod. The pod creaked around him as systems began shutting down. Lights dimmed. The temperature dropped. His vision blurred. He felt himself slipping, drifting into darkness. And then, click, click, crackle. A strange noise came from the radio. For days it had been silent. Now, static filled the cabin. Kale lifted his head slowly, forcing his eyes open. A sound was there, different, sharp, broken into pieces. ZZZT, Mayday, ZZZT, coordinates, repeat, ZZZT. It was a voice. But not one he knew. The language was rough, sharp, and fast. He could not understand the words. His people had never spoken like this. He blinked in shock. Someone was out there. He tried pressing the controls, but his pod had no strength left. The signal faded, then returned again, clearer this time. Hold, position, we see you. Kale's heart began to race. His dry throat tightened. Who were they? Were they Zereth soldiers, hunting survivors? Or scavengers, waiting to strip his pod and leave his body floating? He tried to push the thought away. He did not have strength to fight. He did not even have strength to beg. He was too weak. If these new voices were enemies, then this was his end. The radio crackled again. More voices. More words. He still could not understand them, but the tone was urgent, commanding, alive. These were not his people. These were strangers. Kale's body shook. His people had abandoned him. Now strangers had found him. But why? Why would anyone bother to save a half-dead soldier, lost among the stars? The pod rocked suddenly. Something had locked onto it. A tractor beam pulled him gently but firmly. Lights flashed across the window. Shapes moved outside metal hulls, engines, unfamiliar markings. Kale gasped, trying to see. His vision blurred, but he caught a glimpse of them. They were not Zereth. Their ships were small, rough, not polished like the Dominions. They looked patched together, built for survival, not conquest. And then, through the glass, he saw them. Figures in strange suits. Their bodies looked weak compared to the strong frame of his own people. But there was fire in the way they moved. Purpose. Determination. Cale's heart pounded as the escape pod doors groaned open. A rush of cold air swept in. The figures reached inside, pulling him out. Their hands were strong, but not cruel. He could not understand their words, but their tone was clear. Urgent. Caring. His vision dimmed. The last thing he saw was a face behind a clear visor, eyes filled not with hate, not with greed, but with something he had not felt in a long time. Compassion. Darkness took him again. And as Cale slipped into unconsciousness, one thought burned inside his mind. Who are these strange beings, and why would they save me? Cale awoke to light. At first, it was blinding too bright for his tired eyes. He groaned softly, his body heavy, his throat dry. For a moment, he thought he was dead. That the light was the end, the final door after life. But then he heard sounds. Not silence. Not emptiness. Voices. They were close, surrounding him. The words were fast, sharp, strange. He could not understand them, but he could feel them. There was no anger in the tone. No cruelty. Instead, it was urgent, careful, almost gentle. His vision slowly cleared. He was lying on a bed, no, not a bed, but some kind of medical table. Metal walls surrounded him, humming softly with the rhythm of machines. A ceiling light glowed above. He smelled something strange in the air, sterile, clean, almost sharp. Then he saw them. Figures moved around him. Not Vuori. Not Zereth. Different. Their bodies were slimmer, their skin softer, their faces open and uncovered. Their eyes, too forward-facing, sharp and alive, watched him closely. Their hair grew in strange shapes, different colors, some tied, some free. Humans. Cale did not know that word yet. To him, they were simply strangers. Fragile in body, yet moving with confidence. They spoke to each other quickly, their words bouncing back and forth like fire. Cale tried to sit up, but pain shot through his arm. He gasped and fell back. Immediately, one of the humans, small, with dark eyes and steady hands, stepped forward and pressed something against his chest. A gentle push. A quiet voice. Calming. He could not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Stay still. You are safe. Safe. Cale's heart pounded. How could he be safe here, among strangers? His own people had abandoned him. The Zereth wanted him dead. Why would these beings, who did not even know his name, care whether he lived or died? Another human approached. Taller, with streaks of gray in his hair. His face carried lines, not of weakness, but of experience. He looked down at Cale with steady eyes. For a moment, the room grew quiet. The older human spoke slowly, clearly, as if trying to break the barrier of language. You are safe. The words were strange. But Cale understood them. Not perfectly, but enough. His chest tightened. He opened his mouth, but his throat was dry, his voice cracked. Still, he forced out a whisper in his own tongue. Why, save me? The humans did not understand. Their heads tilted. But the question burned inside Cale's heart. His people had left him. Why would these strangers act differently? One of the younger humans returned, holding a small container. They pressed it to his lips. Water. Cold, fresh, life itself. Cale drank greedily, choking slightly, but they steadied his head, helping him. The simple act hit him harder than any weapon. These beings owed him nothing. He was no ally, no friend. Yet they gave him water. They gave him life. Kale's mind spun with confusion. Who were they? What did they want? The tall human, the one who seemed like a leader, spoke again. His voice was calm, steady, unshaken. No one left behind. Kale froze. The words struck deep. No one left behind. His people had done the opposite. They had left him without a thought. Abandoned him to the dark. But these fragile strangers, with weak bodies and strange voices, had pulled him from death. Kale felt a heat in his chest, something he had not felt since before the war. Hope. Still, doubt lingered. What if this was a trick? What if they wanted to use him as bait, as trade, as leverage? He had seen empires play such games. Mercy was rare in the galaxy. But as he watched their faces, he saw no deceit. Only determination. Only compassion. Hours passed. The humans worked on him, cleaning his wounds, replacing his bandages, feeding him warm broth that tasted strange but gave him strength. He listened to their voices, their laughter, their quiet arguments. He could not understand the words, but he understood the feeling. They were a family, bound together not by race or empire, but by something deeper. Kale closed his eyes again, his body still weak, but his mind restless. He thought of the battle, of the screams, of the fire. He thought of the silence in his pod, drifting among the stars. He thought of how easily he could have died, forgotten, nameless. And then he thought of these humans. Strangers who had chosen to save him when even his own kind had not. As he drifted toward sleep, he whispered to himself. Not for them, not for anyone else, but for his own soul. Why? Why would they risk so much, for me? The question burned inside him, louder than the pain, stronger than the hunger. Outside the medical bay, the human ship drifted through the dark. Its hull was small, patched, scarred by battles past. To the galaxy, it was nothing, just another fragile craft, easy to ignore. But inside, Kale was beginning to see something the galaxy did not yet understand. The humans were different. And deep inside, Kale knew this was only the beginning. Kale's strength returned slowly. Days passed on the human ship, and each day felt like a strange dream. The humans fed him, gave him clean water, changed his bandages, and even tried to teach him words from their language. Their ship was not large or advanced. Its corridors were narrow, the lights flickered sometimes, and the walls carried scars from old battles. Yet, despite its flaws, the ship felt alive. It felt safe. Kale had served on many Viori warships. They were bigger, stronger, armed with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. But on those ships, silence ruled. Orders were followed, mistakes were punished, fear was always present. Here, it was different. The humans laughed. They argued. They teased each other. They worked together like family. Kale watched them closely. At first, he thought they were weak, too fragile, too soft. Their muscles were small, their skin unarmored, their lifespan too short. Against the Zereth Dominion, they should have no chance. And yet, they kept surviving. One night, as the ship drifted silently through space, Kale walked into the control room. He was still weak, but his body was healing. The captain, the gray-haired human, sat at the console, watching the stars. Kale stood there for a long moment before speaking. His words were broken, mixing his own language with the few human words he had learned. Your ship, small. Weak. Why, fight? The captain looked at him, calm, then smiled faintly. Because, he said slowly, choosing words Kale might understand, We fight, for each other. Kale frowned. He did not fully understand. For each other? Not for power? Not for empire? Not for control of the stars? The captain must have seen the confusion on his face, because he leaned back, eyes still on the endless black beyond the glass. You were left behind. Alone. We don't do that. Not ever. Human, fights, for human. No one, left behind. The same words again. The same meaning. Kale felt them like a weight pressing against his chest. Over the next few days, Kale saw more. He saw how the humans repaired their failing systems not with perfect tools or advanced technology, but with creativity, with stubborn hands and clever minds. They reused scraps, built new parts from broken ones, and made the impossible work. He saw how they trained with weapons crude compared to the Vuori's plasma rifles, but used with deadly skill. They practiced endlessly, learning from mistakes, never giving up. He saw how they treated each other. When one was tired, another stepped in. When one was afraid, another gave courage. When one was injured, all helped. And slowly, Kale began to understand. The humans were not the strongest. Not the fastest. Not the smartest. But they had something no empire had ever taught him. Unity. Loyalty. A will that refused to break. One day, Kale watched as the crew prepared for a small mission. They were low on supplies and had to land on a nearby asteroid station to trade. The Dominion often patrolled such places, so danger was certain. Kale offered to help, but the humans refused. He was still weak. He insisted. His voice shook with determination. My people, gone. You save me. I fight, with you. The humans looked at each other, then at him. Finally, the captain nodded. Then fight. But fight with us. Not for yourself. With us. Kale followed them onto the station. The place was rough, filled with scavengers and traders from many species. The humans walked with caution, but also with confidence. They were few in number, yet their presence felt larger. Kale noticed how they watched each other's backs, how their eyes scanned every shadow, how their steps moved in silent rhythm. When trouble came, it came fast. A group of armed raiders blocked the path, demanding supplies. Kale reached for his weapon, expecting the humans to draw first. But instead, they talked. They delayed. They distracted. They used words as weapons. And when fighting finally broke out, the humans were ready. They moved like water, fast, coordinated, unpredictable. They used cover, set traps, fought with precision. Their weapons were not powerful, but their teamwork made them deadly. Kale fought beside them. He felt their energy, their fire. And for the first time since his people abandoned him, he felt something stronger than survival. He felt belonging. After the battle, as the raiders fled and silence returned, Kale stood among the humans, chest heaving, eyes burning with something new. Respect. He looked at the captain and whispered in broken human words, "You, not weak. Never weak." The captain placed a hand on his shoulder, steady and strong. "Now you see. Humanity is different." Kale nodded slowly. He did see. The galaxy looked at humans and saw weakness. But Kale now understood the truth. Their strength was not in ships or weapons. Their strength was in each other. In their unity. In their refusal to abandon anyone. And deep inside, Kale felt the shift. He was no longer just a survivor. He was becoming something else. Something greater. For the first time, he thought, perhaps these fragile beings could stand against the might of the Dominion. Perhaps they could do what no empire dared to try. Kale's heart pounded. He was beginning to believe. And belief, he realized, was more powerful than fear. The calm did not last. Kale had begun to heal, his body stronger, his mind sharper. He learned more of the humans each day, their language slowly finding a place on his tongue. He even laughed with them sometimes, though the sound felt strange after so much pain. But peace in space was always temporary. And the shadow of the Zereth Dominion soon returned. It began with a signal. Faint, but powerful. The ship's scanners detected the unmistakable energy signature of a Dominion warship. Kale's blood ran cold the moment he saw it on the screen. The captain's face hardened. The crew grew silent. Kale whispered, his voice shaking, "They hunt me." The captain glanced at him, calm but firm. "Then they will have to face us." Kale's eyes widened. "No. You don't understand. Dominion, too strong. You fight them, you die." The captain stood tall. His voice was steady. "Maybe. But we don't hand over friends. Not to anyone." The words struck Kale like a weapon. Friends. They called him that. Not prisoner. Not burden. Friend. But the danger was real. The Zereth Dominion's ship was massive, 10 times the size of the human vessel. Its weapons could tear through metal like paper. Its crew numbered in the hundreds, trained for war. The human ship was small, scarred, with only a handful of fighters. It should have been hopeless. Yet Kale saw no fear in the human's eyes. Only determination. The crew moved fast. They began preparing traps, reprogramming systems, rerouting power. They did not talk about surrender. They did not talk about running. They talked only of fighting smart. Kale watched as they worked. They used everything: scrap metal, spare wires, old explosives to create weapons from nothing. They set false beacons to confuse enemy sensors. They mapped the asteroid field nearby, planning to use it as a shield. It was madness. It was impossible. And yet, it was brilliant. When the Dominion ship arrived, it filled the stars with its presence. Dark, towering, bristling with weapons. Kale felt his heart sink. He had seen such ships before, and he knew what they could do. The humans did not flinch. The Dominion hailed them. A cruel voice filled the speakers, sharp and mocking. "Hand over the Vuori survivor. Do so, and we will spare your worthless vessel." Kale closed his eyes. This was it. He would beg the humans to let him go. He would surrender himself to save them. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, the captain cut across the channel. His voice was calm, but hard as steel. "No one left behind." Silence followed. Then the Dominion laughed, a sound cold and cruel. "Then you will die with him." The battle began. The Dominion ship fired first, beams of energy tearing across the void. The human vessel danced between the blasts, weaving through the asteroid field. The crew worked in perfect rhythm, pilots twisting the ship, engineers rerouting power, gunners firing every weapon they had. Kale stood at a console, his heart racing, as alarms screamed around him. He wanted to believe, but could humans truly stand against this? The humans didn't try to match power with power. They fought differently. Cleverly. When the Dominion locked onto them, the humans released false signals, tricking the enemy into firing at empty space. When the Dominion pursued, the humans darted through narrow gaps in the asteroids, where the larger ship could not follow. When the Dominion tried to jam their systems, the humans hacked back, turning the Dominion's own signals against them. Every move was unexpected. Every choice was daring. Kale realized something incredible: the humans were not trying to win with strength. They were winning with creativity. With stubborn refusal. With the belief that they could win, even when the galaxy said it was impossible. The fight raged on. Explosions lit the dark. The human ship took hits, shields broke, metal groaned, smoke filled the halls. But still they fought. Still they refused to break. At last, the trap was sprung. The humans lured the Dominion ship deep into the asteroid field. Mines hidden in the rocks exploded, tearing through its shields. Debris struck its hull. Systems overloaded. The Dominion commander roared in fury over the channel. "You are nothing. You are insects. How dare you resist?" The captain's reply was simple, but powerful. "We are human. And we do not abandon our own." With one final strike, the humans fired everything they had. Torpedoes ripped through the weakened Dominion hull. The great warship shuddered, burning, and then pulled away, retreating into the darkness, humiliated. The crew cheered. Some cried, some laughed, some simply collapsed in exhaustion. Against all odds, they had stood against the Dominion and survived. Cale stood frozen, his chest heavy with emotion. His people would never have believed such a thing possible. A small, fragile ship of humans, defeating a galactic giant. He looked at the captain, at the crew, at the faces of those who had risked everything for him. His voice trembled, but the words were clear. "You are not weak. You are stronger than any empire." The captain placed a hand on his shoulder. "Now you understand. This is what it means to be human." Cale nodded slowly, his eyes burning. He did understand. He understood more than ever before. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. And now, Cale knew, the galaxy would never be the same. The battle was over. The stars were quiet again, but the silence was different now. It was not the silence of death, not the silence of being abandoned. It was the silence that comes after victory. The human ship drifted slowly through the debris of the fight. Fires still burned on the hull, smoke leaked from damaged vents, alarms blinked faintly. The crew moved like shadows in the dim light, tired, bruised, bleeding but alive. Against all odds, they had faced the Zereth Dominion, and forced it to retreat. Cale sat in the corner of the medical bay, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His body still ached, but his heart felt stronger than ever. He had seen something no one in the galaxy would believe. Fragile, weak humans had stood against a giant and refused to fall. He thought of his people, the Viuri, who had left him behind, who had fled instead of fighting. They had seen no value in him. To them, he had been a burden, a soldier too broken to save. But these humans, strangers from a distant world, had risked everything to protect him. Why? The question still burned inside him. But slowly, the answer was becoming clear. The humans did not fight for empire. They did not fight for conquest. They fought for each other. For family. For the belief that no one should be left behind. That was their strength. That was why they could face the impossible and still rise again. The captain entered the medical bay, his uniform burned in places, his face smeared with smoke and blood. He walked with a limp, but his eyes were steady as always. He looked at Cale, then gave a faint smile. "You fought well," the captain said in his rough, simple words. Cale lowered his head. "I only survived because of you." His voice trembled, but he forced the words out. "My people left me. You did not. You fight, not for power. Not for gain. You fight, for each other." The captain nodded slowly. "That is humanity." Cale lifted his gaze, meeting the captain's eyes. For the first time, he spoke without doubt. "Then I will fight with you. From now on. My life belongs here." The captain placed a hand on Cale's shoulder, strong and steady. He said nothing more, but his silence spoke louder than words. Cale was no longer a stranger. He was part of them now. The days that followed were filled with repairs. The crew worked together, patching holes, fixing systems, clearing the ship of smoke. Cale helped as best he could. At first, his hands were clumsy with human tools, but the crew guided him with patience. They laughed at his mistakes, taught him their tricks, and soon his strength became part of theirs. For the first time in his life, Kale felt true belonging. Not because of blood, not because of race, but because of choice. Because here, on this fragile ship, no one was abandoned. When the ship was ready to move again, Kale stood with the crew in the control room. The stars stretched wide before them, endless and mysterious. He had once seen them as cold, empty lights. Now he saw them as something else: possibility, hope, freedom. The captain spoke to the crew, his voice tired but proud. We survived today. We showed them who we are. And we will keep showing them, every time they try to break us. The crew cheered softly, their voices filled with fire despite their exhaustion. Kale felt the energy flow into him, filling the hollow space that had once been despair. He turned toward the window, staring at the infinite night beyond. His reflection looked back at him, a soldier who had been left for dead, but who had risen again, not because of his people, but because of humanity. And deep inside, he made a silent promise. I was abandoned among the stars. But I will not abandon you. From this day forward, I fight as one of you. The ship's engines roared to life, pushing them forward into the unknown. They were still small. Still fragile. Still hunted by powers far stronger than them. But Kale no longer felt fear. Because he understood now, humanity's true power was not in their weapons or their ships. It was in their will. In their unity. In their refusal to surrender. And that made them unstoppable. As the ship disappeared into the stars, Kale smiled faintly. He was no longer drifting alone in the darkness. He had found something greater than survival. He had found a new beginning.